There is a rubber hand on a table in front of you. Your real hand is hidden behind a screen. A researcher strokes both, the rubber one and your invisible one, at exactly the same time. 60 seconds pass, then 90, and then something happens. You feel the touch in the fake hand. You feel it as yours. You feel yourself reaching outward into something that does not belong to you, and the strange, shivering certainty arrives. This is my hand. That feeling, the feeling of being a self, located in a body, looking out at a world. Thomas Metzinger, one of the world's leading philosophers of mind, says it is exactly that kind of feeling. Not a mistake, but a construction, a tunnel through which your brain feeds you a convincing version of reality, one that has you in it. This is a read-aloud summary of the ego tunnel, The Science of the Mind and the Myth of the Self by Thomas Metzinger. It is a book that could change the way you understand what you are, not as a spiritual claim, but as a scientific one, backed by neuroscience, cognitive research, and a philosophical honesty most people prefer to avoid. If you want one of these every week, subscribing takes one tap. Here is the core problem the book addresses. You have spent your entire life feeling like someone. You feel like a person, a consistent, unified self who persists through time, who chooses things, who is the owner of your thoughts and the origin of your actions. That feeling is so constant, so immediate, that most of us have never seriously questioned it. But Metzinger opens with a claim that cuts to the bone. There is no such thing as a self. Nobody has ever been one. What you experience as you is a model, a sophisticated simulation your brain generates and presents so seamlessly that you cannot see the seams. That is not a poetic metaphor. It is what the science, Metzinger argues, actually shows. The tunnel nobody notices. The central metaphor in this book is the ego tunnel. Your brain does not give you direct access to reality. It builds a model of the world, processing only a fraction of what is actually out there, filtering for survival, and assembling it into what feels like a continuous, vivid, real experience. That process is the tunnel. You live inside it. You cannot see its walls. But human beings have something additional. Inside the world model, the brain also generates a model of the organism itself, a self-model, or what Metzinger calls the phenomenal self-model, the PSM. That inner image, your body, your feelings, your memories, your point of view, is what you experience as you. It is the center of the tunnel. And here is the key. The PSM is transparent. You do not experience it as a model. You look through it, not at it. You cannot see the window. You only see the view. This is why the rubber hand illusion works. The brain does not have a fixed, hardwired location for the self. It runs a continuous integration process, pulling together vision, touch, and body position, and decides, moment by moment, what counts as mine. Swap in a rubber hand with enough synchronized input, and the brain updates the self-model to include it. There is no permanent self holding firm underneath, only the model adjusting. The question planted in that lab in Pittsburgh in 1998 is one Metzinger spends the whole book approaching. If the self is a model, what happens when the model breaks? When the body leaves the room? In 2002, a Swiss neurologist named Olaf Blanke was treating a patient with epilepsy by stimulating different parts of her brain with an electrode. When he reached a specific region, the junction between the temporal and parietal lobes, the patient reported floating above her own body. she could see herself lying on the table below. She felt perfectly calm. This was the first time a full out-of-body experience had been deliberately triggered in a controlled clinical setting. Out-of-body experiences, Metzinger argues, are not mystical. They are not evidence of a soul separating from the body. They are evidence of something stranger and more precise. The brain can lose track of where the self-model is anchored. Usually, the PSM is tightly coupled to your physical body. That is what makes the sense of inhabiting your body feel unshakable. But the anchoring is maintained by continuous signals. The weight of your body on a chair, the warmth of your hands, the position of your limbs in space. Disrupt those signals through electrical stimulation, sensory conflict, oxygen deprivation, and the brain can place the self-model outside the body. Metzinger and Blanca ran virtual reality experiments with healthy subjects. A participant stands in a room while a camera films them from behind, projecting the image onto a screen in front. A researcher strokes their back while the projected image is stroked in sync. Within minutes, many report feeling that their center of experience has shifted, that the I is now located inside the projected image. The sense of being located somewhere, here I am, inside this body, looking out, is not a metaphysical given. It is a construction. Your brain places you in a body the same way it placed you in the rubber hand, by running a model and making it transparent. When the model slips, you float. The next time you feel absolutely certain about who you are and where you are, remember that this certainty is produced by the same process that can be interrupted by a surgeon's electrode. That is not a reason for panic. It is a reason for a certain loosening of the grip. The feeling of choosing. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet asked subjects to flex their wrist whenever they felt like it, while noting exactly when they became conscious of the intention to move. What he found disturbed a lot of people. The brain's preparatory motor activity began roughly half a second before the person felt the conscious intention to act. The brain started preparing the movement before the person decided to move. This is the free will problem, and Metzinger does not soften it. The feeling of having decided something, the sense that you, right now, are the author of your own actions, is one of the most powerful features of conscious experience. It is also, Metzinger argues, a feature of the self-model, not a description of what is physically happening. The brain generates a feeling of agency. That feeling is real in the sense that you genuinely have it. But the actual causal sequence of how an action begins may not give the conscious self the starring role it assumes. This does not mean you should stop deliberating. Metzinger is careful here. The self-model with its sense of agency is a functional reality. It shapes behavior, enables planning, makes social life possible. But knowing that the feeling of choice is itself a model. Generated experience can change something. It can reduce rigid self-congratulation and rigid self-blame. It can open up curiosity about what is actually happening inside you, rather than a comfortable story about who you are. Metzinger calls the experience of free will hallucinated agency, not because the actions are not real, but because the accompanying feeling of pure, uncaused choosing may be the brain's own interpretation of a process that was already underway. The tunnel meets other tunnels. Watch a child who has just learned to walk, run too fast towards something, and fall. The child hits the floor, lifts his head, and looks at his mother's face. His own expression is blank. He is waiting for a signal. Should this hurt? Should he cry? The answer comes not from inside himself, but from his mother. And when she smiles, The child's face shifts, the PSM updates, and the fall becomes funny. Metzinger uses this moment to introduce one of the book's most important ideas. The child does not yet have an autonomous self-model. He borrows from the other, and in subtler ways, Metzinger argues, none of us ever fully stop doing this. Our sense of who we are is shaped continuously by the self-models of the people around us. The mechanism involves what neuroscientists call mirror neurons, cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing the same action. You reach for a glass, certain neurons activate. You watch someone else reach, some of those same neurons fire. The brain simulates the other's action inside itself. This is part of how we understand each other. In damaged or disrupted form, it may be part of how we fail to. Two ego tunnels can resonate. The quality of that resonance varies enormously and is shaped from the very beginning by the social environment in which the tunnel first developed. Some people have rich access to the emotional layers of their own self-model. Others have closed off large regions of that interior landscape, usually for reasons that made sense once. What you experience as connecting with another person is, at the level of mechanism, one tunnel learning to simulate another. That image can feel cold or deeply intimate, depending on which part of you is listening. When the dream tunnel opens, every night your brain generates a complete world. It populates it with people, objects, textures, light, and threat. It places you inside it, and you believe all of it. The dream ego does not know it is dreaming. It cannot step back and notice that the signals it is turning into experience are self-generated. Metzinger is particularly interested in the exception, lucid dreaming, in which the dreamer becomes aware that they are dreaming while still inside the dream. In the 1970s, researchers including Stanford's Benjamin Libet established that lucid dreamers could communicate from inside the dream using pre-agreed eye movement signals recorded on instruments in the waking lab. The dream eyes moved. The waking eyes followed. A bridge between two tunnels. What lucid dreaming demonstrates is that the metacognitive failure of ordinary dreaming, the inability to recognize that you are running a simulation, is not permanent. It can lift, and when it does, something shifts in the quality of consciousness. Subjects report heightened vividness and an unusual clarity about the constructed nature of what they are experiencing. Metzinger suggests this may be a model for something broader. Most of the time, waking consciousness also has a metacognitive failure of its own kind. We do not notice we are in a tunnel, so we do not question what the tunnel shows us. Practices like meditation attempt the same move as lucid dreaming. They try to make the model visible without destroying it. The tunnel does not disappear. You just stop being completely lost in it. The ethics of the tunnel. If the self is a model, if consciousness is something the brain generates and in principle could be altered or engineered, then a question arrives that cannot be put aside. Metzinger calls it the consciousness ethics problem. We already have technologies that alter conscious experience, pharmaceutical, neurological, virtual. We are approaching the ability to design specific states of mind with increasing precision. And because the sense of reality, selfhood, and free will are all features of the model, not features of the world, they can, at least in principle, be adjusted. Who decides what a good state of consciousness is? Metzinger does not pretend to have the final answer, but he argues this is the question that will define what kind of civilization we become. What states of mind do we want available to our children? Which altered states should be encouraged or banned? Can we engineer empathy? Can we create artificial suffering And if so, are we obligated not to? These are not distant questions. They are the natural consequences of accepting the scientific picture this book has built. Consciousness is real. It matters enormously, and it is far more fragile and malleable than the ego tunnel would have you believe. Back to the rubber hand on the table. The researcher has stopped stroking. The illusion fades. Your real hand is behind the screen, where it always was. And yet, for a moment, you felt it so clearly. You felt ownership. You felt mindness. You felt self. That feeling did not come from reality. It came from the model. Knowing this, really knowing it, not just thinking it, changes the quality of the habitation. There is more room inside a tunnel you can see, more wonder, and maybe a little less certainty about what you were most sure of. What you experience as yourself, right now, lying there in the dark, is a model the universe is using to look at itself. Whether that fills you with vertigo or with something like awe probably has less to do with the facts than with what kind of tunnel you have been living in. If something in this one stayed with you, drop it in the comments. I read every one, and a like helps more than you know.